Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a company valuation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. During this episode, we'll discuss employee stock ownership plans or ESOP plans as an alternative to selling your business with Melissa Beezhack. She's an ESOP valuation expert in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So let's say the business owner decides that this is the best idea. This is the plan that I want to go about. What types of advisors do they first get involved in this ESOP transaction? And then what role do you take on?
Yeah, great question. Owners at times are a little bit surprised when, they realize just how many advisors it will take to accomplish or effectuate the transaction. So when it comes to the business owner and the company, we always recommend that they hire an advisor that's not, their normal CPA or accountant to conduct a feasibility study. There are companies out there that perform these feasibility studies. They actually go in and work on behalf of the exiting shareholder and the company to determine whether or not an ESOP is even feasible before you move to try to effectuate a transaction. So I would suggest right then is say to any business owner that calls me and say, I'm thinking about an ESOP. Can you value the business? And I said, well, regulations are a little bit different now because it's heavily regulated by the Department of Labor, the IRS. There's guidance under ERISA that needs to be observed. So, I typically refer my business owners that call, get a feasibility study. There are a number of companies that take care of that for you. And then they essentially act as the advisor of the exiting shareholder in the company. So they work on establishing, one, is it feasible? And then, what's the price that we're willing to, or, what's the price that we're thinking that the business is worth? And we talk about in terms of ESOPs, the game changer for some business owners is that price, because we're required to pay no more than fair market value for the exiting shareholder stock. And very different from selling your business or your stock to a competitor or a third-party investment or synergistic buyer, where you're going to receive a premium above and beyond what a financial buyer would pay. So that's often a game changer, because if the business owner is seeking the highest price that they can get, an ESOP is not for them. Clearly we're held to determining what the fair market value is. So once the business owner understands that, signs on for that, and understands, I'm going to get fair market value, but there's so many other benefits to this, tax benefits both to the exiting shareholder as well as the company. So once that's done, then what happens is there is typically a trustee that is engaged by the employee stock ownership plan that acts as a fiduciary on the part of the ESOP, not representing the company or the exiting shareholder, but in fact there as the fiduciary for the plan itself. Now that fiduciary, that trustee, and typically if we're going through a transaction, I tell my clients all the time, hire an outside independent trustee. Even if it's only for the transaction, make sure that you're hiring that independent trustee. Why? Because if you're sitting on both sides of the transaction and negotiating with yourself, that's probably not a good situation. So you bring on an independent trustee. Often that trustee has their own counsel that helps them in terms of the ESOP plan itself, and just ensuring that the fiduciary, the trustee, is covered. And then that's also as part of the trustee teams. When somebody like me comes in, I come in as the independent financial advisor to the trustee, and I establish on my side the fair market value of the business or the interest in the business that's being sold. And then at that point, there are actually negotiations between the exiting shareholder and then the trustee. And oftentimes there are a couple turns of that, but always staying within the realm of fair market value. I mean, when you think about fair market value, it's always based on a hypothetical willing buyer, willing seller. based on, all having reasonable knowledge of the relevant facts, this is a situation where it's a negotiation between, two sellers that have, or two sellers, one buyer, one seller that has reasonable knowledge of all the relevant facts. So that's exactly what the governing bodies of ESOPs, want to see.